listening to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out policyt.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk, Production Redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the... That's my fake attempt at late breaking and important news. Screw the podcast. We're going to have a conversation today. I got my friend Nick Ayers, now of Glovebox, with me, and literally yesterday afternoon, they dropped the announcement that Glovebox has been acquired, or I'm sorry, let me get this straight. Start all kinds of rumors. Better Agency has now been acquired by Glovebox. This is important to me personally for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm an investor in Better Agency and have a financial interest in how this transaction went down, turns out, all of the above. That being said, and more importantly to me, is I have friends that are affected by this on both sides, but predominantly on the Better Agency side. And I have been, I don't want to say intimately involved, but paying very close attention to everything that's happened with Better Agency, from it being an idea to launching to the last several years of building a brand and having conferences and everything else. And when you see something like an acquisition go down, I think a lot of us from a human standpoint think, wonder how much money everybody made. But the reality is, I also think about, how is this going to affect my friends? How is this going to affect the people that are there? And is this going to be a negative event for them? And in many cases, I know their families, and how is it going to affect them too? So I was a bit refreshed when I saw Nick's video that he put out this morning on YouTube about where he's at. And if you have not seen that, I would encourage you to go watch it. You're probably going to hear a little bit more of the same as we chat here this morning, but I think it's a really good insight into how many of us probably think about things. I mean, we all get into the industry, God knows how. Very few people I know came into the insurance industry or any of their jobs intentionally. Maybe if you're a doctor, you intentionally went to medical school, I would accept that. But, I interviewed thousands of people over the course of the last 5 years at this point on the podcast and otherwise. And of those, thousands of those people never had any interest in being in the insurance industry until they were. And I feel like when we get into these situations where we're building a business, whether it be an agency or a software platform or whatever, we go all in, man. That's just who we are. If we're successful in the insurance industry, it's because we were committed, we believed in ourselves, we took that bet, we doubled down, and we pushed on, and we try and transfer that to everything else that we do. And so being transparent, Nick, with you, my concern more than anything else was how is this going to impact you personally and the other leadership mentally as you go through this process? Because to me, that's the biggest thing. And here, and I want to frame it by saying, you guys took something and built something really cool from absolutely nothing. And it may not be ultimately what you wanted it to be, but nobody can take away from you that you took your shot. And I don't view this as, Better Agency failed and Glovebox had to come bail them out. I don't view it as that at all. But I do think that the two of you together are stronger than either of you being separate. A George divided amongst itself cannot stand. But, in all reality, I think that's the case. And so talk a little bit about that. I mean, you don't need to go through your full 12-minute YouTube video of your thoughts, but give them the elevator pitch because I think there are probably a lot of people out there that can relate to where you're at right now.
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing that as I look back on everything, and when I look back on everything, I mean like the last. I've been in, as I said in the video, I've been in the industry now since '05, so we're coming up on the 20-year mark. But
Mm.
really, as I look back on the last 10 years, I look back on it and I go, I have I have no regrets about anything. You always look back at things and go, I probably would have done maybe that a little bit differently, but I don't regret it. And when I say it, I really mean going all in and taking the shot. Um, I I'm really fortunate for where we are and how this story is playing out and where it's going. That you ever there's this meme and it's cliche. You see it online. It's kind of like this what people think success is, and it's like this straight arrow or like this
Yeah.
upward arrow. But really, what it is, it's like this squiggly line on a piece of paper, and that line is like it's like that bumpy road of you go through. You have high times, you have low times, you have everywhere in between. The last 5 years of Better Agency has been unique for me. It was at an interesting point in my life. As a result of it, I said I'm going all in. I was at the poker table of life, and I said we're all in. I sold my agency. I moved my family to a different state. I uh, had other things I was a part of that I was kind of pushed out of. I kind of, and this, I want to be very clear. I everything is as a result. Like I alienated myself from a lot of things by choice, because of the decisions that I had made. And so, um, it's been a very like interesting ride these last couple of years. And I think everybody who's an entrepreneur kind of feels that. And one thing I mentioned in the video, I'll just say again is as I've been thinking about these last, because this has been in the works for a while. It's probably one of the worst kept secrets to some people.
I don't know, man. I'm getting all kinds of iterations. People today are like, "Oh, wait a minute, I thought so and so was going to acquire them," or "I heard they were talking to." I'm like, "Well, where were you like 6 months ago?" I'd love
That's
to
the
have heard
rumor
this.
mill. That's just
Yeah,
the
I'd,
rumor
I'd
mill.
love to have heard the insights back then. I mean, it just cracks me up because you and I have talked. Obviously, I didn't know everything that was going on or even anything for all practical purposes. But for them to come to me like, it's like, well, I really had this thing dialed in. Like, why don't you go sell something instead of worrying about what everybody else is doing?
For sure. But I mean that's human nature, right? And we like the juicy gossip. But uh, when everyone when everyone starts a business, we always think about I think we think about the end, like what's life gonna look like for me. I'm starting this business because I want to set up this thing for my life or my family or this, that. There's all these reasons, but you think about maybe not how the end happens, but you think about the end to some degree, like the result. I think that's a better way of saying it. We think about the result it's going to bring. And one thing that I never hear people talk about is the other side of that. Like you pour your life. Think about this as an agency owner. If you're watching this, you own an agency. Your thumbprints on everything, um, and you kind of are so mentally and physically invested in this thing that when the time comes for there to be a quote unquote end, you look at it and you go, you're not bummed, but you're kind of somber. And that's kind of where I'm at right now as of today. I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm extremely excited. And I'm extremely optimistic and extremely hopeful. But there's a part of you that you're like, man, I put a pound of flesh and blood and sweat and tears into this thing. And now it's like that part is no more. And so like there's a sentimental feeling, I think is a better way of phrasing it, that where you look at it and you're going, you're proud of where you're at. And I really wish, man, it would be so great. And I think it's just the way that, maybe God intended it is just, I wish you didn't have to, I wish you can start things with knowing what you know. Like you have to go through a process in order to become a product, right? And so, man, it would just be so cool if you didn't always have to go through that certain process, but you kind of started the process kind of knowing things. I'm I'm so fortunate for like the things you learn and you grow, like, mentally, and all the things, like you grow in certain areas. It would have been really cool to start the journey with those things. You wish you didn't have to go through the thorn bush to do that, but incredibly grateful, incredibly, like, on the one side sentimental, but on the other side so optimistic about what the future holds.
Well, I think it's probably similar to an agency principal that decides it's time for them to exit and they go through one of these deals with an Acrisure or an Assured Partners, and you essentially sell your agency and then you walk back in and you do the same job, but you're working for somebody else now,
Yeah.
and I think there's probably some level of humility you have to be able to swallow your pride and go in and do that. And I'm not saying you particularly, I'm looking at it more from the
Sure.
agency owner's standpoint. Like, I've been on record as saying multiple times, I almost think I would rather take less money in a payout to just turn in the keys and walk away, as opposed to sitting here and coming in.
Someone's like thinking about what kind of check they can write you right now.
Well, it better be a big one, and it'd certainly entertain the offer, but it needs to be that I would walk away with no strings attached to it, because I know what my limitations are, man. And I mean, as you go through the fire and things are forged, that you become more and more self-aware if you open yourself up to the ability to see those things. And I was in a failed relationship in my prior agency for 8 years, man. 8 years before I launched Florida Risk. And I wish that I knew what I know now back when I launched, because I
Yeah.
thought I did, but you don't know until you actually get to that stage. But at the same time, I came into this, I went all in, I believed in myself, I thought I could make it work, and it makes it a lot more personal. But what all of that taught me, including going all the way back to my retail days, is I'm not designed to work for other people. That's just not who I am. I'm not mentally wired for it. I would be the absolute worst employee that any supervisor could possibly have, because I'm going to question the status quo. I'm not afraid to do it. I'm willing to go do the things necessary to be successful, and then beg for forgiveness, whether or not it's going to be given. So I think that's the first thing. You have to go through stuff like this in order to really understand and figure out who it is that you are, because you go through a lot of dark places that you have to navigate. And I think anybody who says they haven't done that's been through a similar journey, is not being truthful, because every single one of us has. The other thing that I personally have learned over the last 10 to 15 years, is no matter how much it stings on the front end, some people make a decision for you that you weren't willing to make for yourself, and it actually puts you in a better position. And I can tell you, after watching your video and knowing the background and the circumstances around your exit from IAOA, that bothered you a lot. That's something you poured your heart and soul into. That was
I was pissed.
that is what you were known for. That was your identity in the industry, was innovation, and rightfully so. You did an incredible job of building that, putting on the conferences, the production quality, and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you didn't make the decision that it was your time to go, and it bothered you. And as somebody on the outside looking in, I'm here to tell you that that's a decision that needed to be made. You probably never would have. And the reputational risk that you removed from your life by no longer being a part of that is immeasurable.
Well, yeah, and I think where that kind of stung was in the moment. It was like you're filled with a lot of like anger, because to a degree, like, it's,
Well, dude, you and I went through the same thing, man. I mean,
yeah,
I was
you wear
basically
you wear it like a coat. Like, this is who I am, and I think that's a trouble and a fault that, not to get too meta, but I think that's like a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have, even agency owners. They go, "This is who I am. This is," and we have the way that I see it is, we have our identity, like who we really are, and this is who we really are, right? But then we attach all these roles to it, and we think, well, I'm a father, I'm a insurance agent, I'm this, and then when those two things start to collide, it's like a big bang. There's like a cosmic thing. You start, and I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs kind of struggle, is they let their roles and their identity kind of get too mixed and matched, and they don't remember like the true value of certain things. But uh, for me, that was me with IAOA for sure. Like, and um, you look at it, and what made it so troubling is after you leave, it's like, man, you start to see like what you build kind of like go down the toilet, and you're kind of like pissed about it. Um, yeah, I'm not like when all the like there was a lot. I never gloated over it. I was like bummed. I was
No, it's
mad.
disappointing, man. It's part of your life that
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
is being
It
wasted.
imagine you're an agency owner here and you sell your agency to somebody, and you pour like everything into it,
And all
and
of a
the
sudden your
person,
attention drops by 50% as soon as you're
yeah,
gone.
and people are pissed, and they're asking you why, and like you start to watch this thing and like tumble, and you're like, you're it affects again roles and identity. It affects like those two things collide, and you have to remember to take a step back. But that's where I was with that. So yeah, but to your point, it was like the best thing that could happen for me. Like it needed to happen. You don't like how it happened, but it the result needed to be the same.
Yeah, and I mean, I've obviously we're friends. I've watched kind of what's happened. You and I talk every now and again. Every once in a while, I'll reach out and say, "Hey, man, I've noticed this, or I see this," and do my best to try and encourage you, but also stay out of your business as much as I need to. But I've seen you personally progress a lot over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, and I think part of it is kind of realigning yourself with how you want to be known in the industry and what you're contributing. But I also think a huge part of what's helped you um, kind of, I don't know necessarily if it's reflect or not, because we haven't talked about the finer points of your meditational habits. But, I think getting involved in jujitsu and the
Yeah.
martial arts and some of that has brought a different I don't want to say you were undisciplined, but regardless of how disciplined you are, if you didn't have that in your life, the type of discipline that you have in your life when you commit to something like that and actually execute is a much different level. My commitment to mixed martial arts is I'm going to the UFC in Tampa Saturday. I mean, that's
There
that's
you go.
as far as it can go at this stage in my life. Maybe one day I'll be able to get back involved in it if my body will allow me. But watching that process has actually like almost had a direct correlation. And I'm going to say this, not necessarily. I'm going to say this, and then I'll go back and explain it. But it's a direct correlation to the maturation of who you are as a person right now, because it's not necessarily that you were an immature person. I don't think that if any of us were to talk about it, we would go back and say that we're less mature after going through circumstances and events over a period of years than we were prior. So it's a natural process that you're going to mature into what you ultimately become before you pass away. And I just have seen that accelerated and almost been I would like to think anybody who paid any attention would have seen a noticeable change.
Yeah, I hope so too. It starts at home and starts with the people that you're closest with, and for sure, like again, process product, right? And not every and with like process is good at like the good stuff and the bad stuff. You have to go through all of it, and I want to like just course correct a little bit because it feels like this is not a woe is me thing. This is
Oh no,
not
not at
a
all. Yeah, let's be clear
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's a great thing. I look at it from the sense of take anything monetary out of it, take anything. I look at it from like a sense of purpose and wanting to be a contributor and wanting to make change. And I think people say that, um, and I say that I want to. I really want to. I want to feel like something is better because I was involved, no pun intended. Something is better because I was involved than if I had not been involved. Like you want to contribute. You don't want to be a taker. I think LinkedIn and social media is full of takers, if I'm being honest, and I'm guilty of it at times too. I'm sure, but you want to always feel like you're contributing something and you're making something, you're improving something. And so when I like the tone that maybe some people might be catching on here is that like you just want to feel like you have this insane amount of I sound like Loki, like this glorious purpose, where you want to like you want something uh You want to have impact, and that's it. That's how I look at it. And I am looking back in the last 5, 10 years, even, and going, yeah, there was some level of impact, I think, influence. But I want to use this next season of life to really like put that into hyperdrive and to put that on steroids. And that's kind of what is most exciting. Um, it is a little bit of a shift for me, dynamically, just working on a team as opposed to feeling like something is mine. I think people here, to your point, you can never be an employee. I think there's a lot of people who are probably watching this, listening to this, probably feeling the same way. And if I'm being honest, I probably would have said the same thing like a year ago. So like there is a transition of things that but that's part of the maturation process. That's part of the growth process for me is trying to, um, I guess, mature in that sense. I go from like little butterfly to or caterpillar to butterfly. It's kind of like that metamorphosis for me.
I think it's cool too, man, because had a you had some skill set when you decided you were going to go on this journey. And, if it's anything like what my journey has been going from producer to agency principal, there are a lot of skills you have to pick up along the way too. So you become a more
Oh,
well-rounded person as a result of that.
yeah. If you go through it, never. It's like it should be like a video game, like an NES game. Like you got to pick up little things. It's gotta be like Zelda or something, where you're picking up little trinkets and little power ups along
Yeah.
the way, or you're never gonna complete the game.
Yeah, but I mean that's got to be part of the excitement too,
Oh yeah,
because while you're curious and there may be I don't want to say anxiety in a negative way, but probably a little bit of um,
challenge.
cautiously optimistic
Yeah,
challenge, whatever. When you go into something that's new, that's different, you know, you're going to come out on the other side of this thing with a whole different level of understanding and new skills that you develop along the way too. And I can see that part as being extremely exciting, number one. And number two, you know, just being part of something bigger, because by mathematical definition, when you put two together, it's bigger than just one of the two parts.
yeah,
And the two companies working together, I think, knowing the personalities at the level that I do, which isn't, you know, it's not like I'm best friends with everybody on both sides, but I do feel like I know the personalities pretty well. It's going to be really interesting to see, because I think with Glovebox specifically, and I'm going to speak freely here, Ryan, you can throw something at me later if you want, but I think that Glovebox had a reputation when they first came onto the scene that they were kind of like these young hotshot dudes that came out of an agency, and they thought they had a better way, and they got some venture funding, and they're going to, spend money like drunken pirates do because they've got blank checks. And so they're going to show up at every conference with an entourage. And so far I'm pretty accurate in my description, but they're going to show up at every conference with an entourage, and they've got all of these people, and they're making this massive splash in the industry, and it's Glovebox, Glovebox, Glovebox. And then boom, now it's time for you to sell me your product, have it work, and make me enjoy it and become a brand evangelist for you. I think there was a disconnect and a little bit of a struggle. And the one thing I do know about our industry is underwriters have very long memories, but so do a lot of other people. And so I want to talk a little bit just about that, because there may have been and the reason I bring that up specifically is because there may be a good number of people out there who got turned off almost immediately that are missing out on a really good opportunity for a tool for their agency to
yeah,
maximize their revenue because of a personal bias that, quite frankly, probably shouldn't exist based on what this company looks like 5 or 6 years later, now
yeah,
that we're not doing what most insurtechs do, right?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
There's
is that a fair
definitely
statement before you
uh
answer it? Is that a fair assessment?
that was honestly that was kind of my assessment, as a different, part of a different organization. Um, Maybe not to the same extreme, but like thinking, because I resonated. I mean, I resonated with the guys. Like, we had group chats where we would share memes, and like, so I resonated with the guys. Like, it was
Right.
like a friendly thing. So, but you did see what they were doing. You're like, man, they're doing some cool stuff. But my perception of them was always like an incomplete one, and one that I've learned about, and it is a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, where there's a man behind the curtain here who knows something you don't know, and I'm happy to share some of that stuff or tease some of that stuff. But they're my perception of them was just like, oh, it's a mobile app. That's what it is. It's just a mobile app. And at the time, it was just for personal lines. Um, and I know they were working hard to get commercial lines on there. And if there's anybody who understands like rubbing people the wrong way with personality, I mean, Dave, I made an ad for Better Agency where I was butt naked on top of my pool. Like,
I have the fanny pack. I'm holding on for it to get an autograph one day.
I mean, you're either gonna love that or completely hate it.
Yep.
So I completely get it. And I'm guilty of it too. There's probably some companies, not even in insurance, but like companies, I'm like, I don't want to work with them for this, that, or the other reason. So I totally understand like the human nature of that. But my perception of them was like they were just a mobile app, and if I'm being honest, and this I think this has changed since, but like this is think like 4 years ago, I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of hype for a mobile app. Like, it's just a mobile app, and but what I can say is they, and I think Ryan would have no problem saying that, like there was a period for I don't have like the hard numbers on this, but it felt like 6 to 12 months where they kind of went silent.
Mm.
And they didn't do all those things anymore where they were showing up to conferences. And it came down to we are going to invest 100% of our resources, our time, our energy into this product and take this product from first base to second base to third base. And they shut the doors on a lot of the stuff that they were known for, and they just put their heads down and they started working. This was obviously before I came on the team, but now we're ready to kind of like show the world a little bit more of what that looks like. And if your perception of Glovebox is that it's just a mobile app, that's like 10% of it. It is not just a mobile app. And I could tell you, I always hate like giving dates because I feel like it's like trying to describe. It's like software is like legal. It's like it's always twice as expensive and twice as long. But what I can say is Q1 and Q2 of 2025, there is nothing like what's happening. I think a lot of agents, they buy technology for their agency, and they only think about how it helps them. They only think about like how it's gonna affect the internal workings of the agency. That's why you have an AMS, and maybe even a CRM to some degree, or different things you buy. But right now, Glovebox is an external. It's what your customers think about you. And yes, an app is part of it, and client forms and all those things that tie into a client experience. When I learned like with Glovebox from a product standpoint, I can tie in all my payment processing, all my forms, all my external stuff into one platform to create one experience. I thought that was like, oh, that's a game changer. It makes you have better ROI on the things you're already spending money on because it creates a better experience for the customer.
Well, I mean, and that's what they've kind of shifted the brand a little bit or a lot from being that mobile app to being a client experience platform. I mean,
but when you say client experience, and this was kind of my gripe, is what does that mean?
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. That's enough to get my attention, but it doesn't really tell me the depth at which it goes, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when we had Ryan and Sean on this podcast. God, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now. Even back then, we were talking about a lot of the things that they were kind of visualizing down the road in terms of integrating with your AMS to have access to your book of business, to know what people had what policies and which ones they didn't, and then having targeted marketing pop up in app to solicit these people.
Yeah, first base.
That kind of stuff, right? And I mean, then you could get to the point where I mean, I actually kind of broke it down for them when we were on the podcast and said, if this was my company, I would do this like a moron, like I always do. And then I find out they're doing like 10 times more than that, but whatever. But I mean, then it's like, well, you've already got the data. What if you could push it to a rater and you could already have quotes prepared? So it wasn't a, hey, solicit these people for a quote, but hey, here's the quotes from 3 of our carriers that are interested in writing the home policy that you currently don't have with our age. I mean, there's just a million and one things you can do because of the data that's involved. So,
Yeah.
but again,
Yeah.
to your point, that's one piece, man. I mean, that's just one small part of a massive, what could be a massive ecosystem.
Yeah, and so when you think about it from the customer experience, imagine your customer having connectivity not just to your agency, but also through your agency to the carrier. So what that looks like, and this example has already been done. This is revolutionary to insurance, but this is not revolutionary to other sectors. Think about your bank. When was the last time you walked into maybe you're a bad example of that. I always hate asking
No,
this
I'm a
question.
great example of this. Keep going.
When was the last time you walked into a bank?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Now, let me ask you a question. Because I hear this is a false belief that agents have. They go, well, I don't want to ruin the experience that I have with my customers if I direct them to like this self-service or online experience or this mobile experience. When you are picking a bank, let's imagine you had to choose a bank right now. And I don't know who you bank with, but let's just say it's Wells Fargo. And you're looking to make a switch. Would you change to a bank who made you come in to their location or call them every time you had a question or needed a transaction made?
No, I specifically bank with Fifth Third because I have treasury services and there's a check scanner that sits on the left-hand side of my desk. So if I do need to make a deposit because people are still archaic and send a paper check, I don't even have to use the mobile app to do that. I can do everything from my computer and I'm done.
But from so think about it. Does the technology they give you, does it make the experience, does it make you think more of them or less of them?
It'd be almost impossible to get me away from them at this point.
Exactly. And so this is how you and I think about our bank. I could tell you last time I went to a bank or called them. If I had to call them every time I had a question, I'd be pissed. I don't want to do that.
I think
neither does my grandma. Neither does, my wife. And this isn't like an age thing. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in a month or so.
No, it's a convenience and a time thing. I don't want to.
But it doesn't make me think less. I bank with Chase. It doesn't make me think less. I think more of Chase because they give me those tools. Like it enhances that. And in insurance, we think, well, I need my customers to call me every time they need something. No, that's that's good for you, maybe. And you're spending a lot of money doing that, like on people and bandwidth, but your customer doesn't want to do that. Why would they want to do that? Do you want to call your utility company? No, nobody does that. And so like this thinking is not revolutionary on itself. It's revolutionary in the space, but with what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring that connectivity from carrier to agency to client. And so there is a marketplace where I can just get the rates directly from the carrier. Right, I'm tied into the carrier. I can see my policy documents from the carrier. I can handle that basic tier 1 manual service that I'm paying 10 CSRs to go do. Why would I need to pay them, whatever the cost of living is in your area, when 20% of their work can be handled, and you don't want your staff doing that stuff anyways. If that's what you want your staff to do, instead of focusing on high level, high quality stuff, I mean, that's ridiculous in my opinion. So, I can go on a tangent here product wise, but that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me, is being able to take all the stuff I'm doing now, make one seamless experience for the customer, bring out the ROI on the stuff I'm already doing. And as the product matures with things, and maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself here in the tease, but as you think about like the other client facing tools that are going to be out there for customers, and as you think about the CRM capabilities for internal process, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think of things too, like we all talk about how we need to be more proactive or proactively service or do this or do that. And to your point, this is not necessarily a new concept. It's just maybe new to insurance and specifically the independent channel where we still have people using co-op dollars to send out courier and Ives calendars every year at Christmas as part of their client experience. And I mean, I can even envision it being, I don't want to get too big brother here, but I mean, I could see it where you have the geo-targeting turned on in the app and the person allows it and you pull into Courtesy Jeep to look for a new car and you get a push notification that says, hey, just letting you know, we see that you might be considering shopping for a new vehicle. It's going to be a process that takes a little bit for you to get your insurance updated. We wanted to let you know we're here to help you with that. Just hit this button and we'll take you to either the video or wherever they go in the app to say this is how you do a vehicle change while you're at the dealership. One of the things that agents complain about nonstop, by the way, oh, I can't believe they waited till they got to the dealership to tell me they were getting a new car and need this, need that. But if you can automate that process and kind of, use the intuition of the geo-targeting, are you going to be going to a dealership to buy a car every time? No. You might work at a car dealership. You may be going there for service. But you catch my drift, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with a mobile application that you're not going to be able to do if you just have an agent that sits behind a desk and answers the phone when you call.
Yeah, and it's not just a mobile app, right? It's on your website. It's on the web. It's on their phone. It's wherever they're.
Well, and I think that's another thing I want you to probably talk about a little bit, because I think so many people pigeonhole it. When you say app, immediately you think phone app, mobile app, whatever else. But I do know that that was a big initiative.
Yeah.
And actually, Ryan and Sean, I had invited them to come on and talk, and they had a conflict at the last minute and couldn't, and then it just kind of fell off. So we never had the opportunity to dive into that. But I mean, desktop applications are equally as valuable.
You go to an agency's website right now, and a lot of agencies have some sort of like service button, and usually that service is like they click on a button. Think about, I'm gonna let's paint the story from like an insurance point of view. I go to your website, I click on the service button or support or help or whatever, and I'm met with a couple different options. I'm given a phone number and an email address. I'm going, okay, why did I go online to begin with? So I have to call you or email you, or you put in some form that doesn't ask all the right questions or all the questions in general,
or a poorly built chatbot.
Or a poorly built chatbot. And do you like I don't like dealing with chatbots. I'm typing representative or sales agent like as soon as I can. So, or it's like some web portal from maybe an AMS or maybe some other whatever, and it's like a different experience altogether. Or it's like, hey, I want to make a payment, and I click on this, and then I'm taken to this thing. I got to do a login for that, and it's a disjointed bad experience. But let's talk about what the real problem is. And I have a theory. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts on this are. The idea of self-service, and when I say self-service, I don't mean like you never talk to your customers.
Right.
Like, I think let's throw that out. I'm talking about the people who call you when they didn't want to call you. They had to, press 1 for English, listen to your whole music, and it's like, hey, I just need like my deck page. Like, I've been trying to get a hold of you guys for like, a day. And they're pissed. But a lot of agents, they are apprehensive to this concept. And I have a theory as to why. I think when you think about like, I think one of the boogeymen in the industry amongst agents is like technology is going to displace them or replace them, or AI or this, that. Like every new thing is the Terminator. And
well, and it's compounded by the fact that every agent who has never been to law school thinks that they can read a contract and understand the legal jargon in there. And so they'll go in and read like an end user license agreement, for example, and have an interpretation of what it means, which could be something completely different, right? So you take somebody who's already apprehensive from a technology standpoint, and then you put the disclosures and rules around what it means to use that technology. And rather than just accepting the fact that this is the environment we play in, we try and make it look like the boogeyman.
But here's where it's interesting. We, and as an agency owner, we want all these tools for ourselves and the things that we deal with. But we're apprehensive to give them to our customers. And my theory is because I think a lot of agents think that this is the only value they give their customers. that if their customers don't call them for ID cards or to make payments or to get deck pages or to do that they go, what do they need me for then? They can just get insurance online then. I have to provide this great customer service. And they think this is what customer service is. And it's this like fear of like losing control, that they're losing control over the relationship. When, if you go back to the bank example that I was saying, this is what enhances the relationship. This is what makes the relationship better, is when like you as an agency owner, your staff as highly paid assets. I mean, you think about giving someone, all in expense, technology benefits, whatever on average, somewhere on the low end, 50K to 100K, depending on where you live and what the benefits are. Like you have multiple of those. These are highly paid assets. If their time isn't spent like doing real reviews or real consultative work, the things they actually get licensed for, instead of just being transactional, like that's what they should be doing. And that's how you really enhance. That's the service that a consumer should want. It's not like, hey, I want to be able to call you. No, you don't. You don't want to be able to call. I don't. When was the last time I made a phone call anyways? Like I don't make phone calls, but like I use my phone for like playing games and social media. But like that's like most people. So I think that there's this fear of agents like losing control over a relationship, but they've misdefined what control should be or what service should be, and it shouldn't be these things. And if it is, I think there has to be a reframe of that.
Yeah, I went through this, so I can relate to this at a pretty deep level. I mean, it's a confirmation bias that you have. And I mean, I came out of an industry where you're begging people to spend $100 so you can have $1 of net profit. So customer service always meant, I was working the front end of my stores. I was carrying old ladies' groceries out and loading them into the trunk and thanking them and trying to be all things to all people as much as possible. And I mean, imagine that I'm literally trying to be 5 or 6 different people and corral all of that at the same time. But I felt like I was giving them the best service I humanly could give them.
Sure.
And when I came into the agency world, that meant getting certificates to them really fast and making sure that we were doing all of the things we were supposed to do. And when the reality is that the fastest way for me to handle certificates is for me to allow my clients to access them via a portal where they can get them into their end users' hands faster than what they could email me asking me to do it. And so I realized, you know what? I'm the one that's holding up my clients from having the customer experience, the client experience that they want. They've been telling me this for years. I've not been listening to it, and I need to be willing to give up a little bit of control so that they can have the experience that they want, knowing that many other people that I compete against aren't going to be able to get past that. They're going to want to still have their hands involved in everything. And once I came to the reconciliation that the best client service experience for my agency is for my clients to be able to have service certificates, guess what happened? We leaned into it and it became something that we addressed at the point of sale. It became the wedge that we drive when we're talking to people.
It's a value add, right? Just like you have a check scanner on your desk.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to go to a bank that doesn't give you the check scanner? Probably not.
Yeah. No, not at all.
How much you like it. So it helps not just with the overall experience, but like think about your customers and they get used to this experience. Now they have to go back to some agency where I have to like call them and tell them like my 17-digit VIN number. That seems ridiculous. It's imagine taking Amazon away from you right now, like, and you got to like go buy stuff at a strip mall. That sucks. I don't want to do that. Now, so that's where I think there has to be a shift, and I think agents should start to kind of like refocus on or redefine how they think about providing good service. We all want to provide good service. Nobody wants to provide bad service. We just have to think about what do we call that. And so, like with the product and where things are heading here in the very, very quick near future, it's going to be really cool to be able to put these tools in agents' hands that, I mean, accomplish a lot of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about roadmap, man. We've got a little bit of time left, and I know you can't share everything by any stretch, but you've alluded to a couple of teasers, so you were actually teasing teasers. Share what you can share along those lines, and then I also want you to talk a little bit about the webinar that you're going to be doing next week, because this episode's going to be fast-tracked, and it'll drop in plenty of time for people to be able to jump on and hear a lot from the horse's mouth.
Cool. Yeah, so from a product standpoint, obviously Better Agency is a CRM. So being able to build CRM capabilities inside of Glovebox is going to be great. So with Glovebox, I want you to think about this in 2 separate compartments, 2 separate pieces. There's the agency side. So as an agency owner, I go in there, I can check data, analytics, I can send out, everything as nominal as sending out invites to uploading documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I can see who's using it. I can see kind of ROI metrics, all that. There's an agency side. being able to build in CRM capabilities into that, so now things are way more automated from rollouts or new things happening in the agency or cross sell or all of those things from like a marketing automation standpoint. Those things we're looking to build inside of the product naturally or natively. Uh, and then you think about the customer side, which is everything from the mobile app to me going onto your website and a client portal, all of those things that where a customer is engaging with the agency. Being able to put in, not even put in data, but just have data already collected, like already there. So I go on there to make a change on my policy, and it already tells me, hey, we have your policy here. Here's the VIN number. The car, I need to change a car. Having that data already there, pre-filled from having all the carrier connectivity is going to be great for the customer experience. Being able to have one place where I can make changes or policies or request certs or ID cards or whatever is going to be great. So from a product roadmap standpoint, we have the CRM capabilities. One thing that we're going to be releasing here very, very soon is it's an Applied Epic SDK. So we're able to pull all the documents, all the information out of Applied Epic and put it directly into Glovebox automatically. So all of that client information, policy information, any docs or ID cards or decks or certs or whatever you have, kind of living in one place because it's connected directly to Applied Epic. We have other AMSs that are on the rollout here very, very soon after that, which is going to be really exciting. We have what we're calling Policy Assist, where again, it's where I talked about as an insured, I can go on there, I can request changes, and I have all that information already pre-filled for me. So it just makes the endorsement process just a lot easier. It doesn't complete it on every carrier because there's not direct connectivity to every carrier, but it allows you as the agent to be able to work those things, and having the CRM capabilities, the service side, the function, the communication back to the customer, back to the agency is going to be just a really cool internal experience as well. So we have those going on. We have what we're calling our marketplace, which is going to be dropping here very, very soon as well. So the ability for, much like your experience, it knows what policies I have with the agency, being able to connect to the carrier or being able to pull those rates directly in that says, hey, here's what your home costs with Nationwide. We know you have Nationwide Auto. Is something you want to, be able to add. Being able to have that all in one spot, being able to notify the customers. It's going to be really cool. I've probably said way too much, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about this internally, but I get really excited for it. So
I don't think you did, man. Keep going. No, but I mean, think about this, man. With everything you just said, where my mind immediately goes,
not just for personal lines, by the way.
No, yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. But where my mind immediately goes for something along these lines is Experian or Credit Karma or one of these other places, right? So, and I want to be careful in how I word this because I don't want it to sound like it's like bait and switch, because that's not what it is, what we're talking about. But if you think about it, this is a marketing company whose hook is to have you monitor your credit score, right? And then when you get in, what happens? Here's how you get a home equity loan. Here's how you get better rates on your auto insurance. Here, all of these different things. And then there's upsells to where you can get your report from all three bureaus and all of this other stuff. So if you're an agent out there and you're having a hard time visualizing kind of what that general thought process looks like, and you don't have like the Experian app or Credit Karma or one of these others, I'd encourage you to maybe download it just to see what it looks like, but you'll understand what I'm saying at that point. That's why I say that, in agree with Nick, this isn't new. This is just new to the insurance space. And this is just one example of, a small part of what he's talking about. Yeah. But look, Credit Karma, Experian, all of these people who have these apps, look, they'll even get you to integrate your checking account so they can go through and tell you, hey, by the way, you can save money here because you have recurring subscriptions that you probably don't even need. Like, it's a one-stop shop for your financial fitness is how I would look at it, but it's branded as Experian's Credit Tracker.
Yeah,
and so obviously I have the app.
Yeah, and so being able to actually deliver on the promise of delivering great service, and this goes back to how do we define service? If we define service as, hey, I want to be able to be there by text, email, SMS, Facebook, direct message, Instagram, like every smoke signal for my customers to request things that they shouldn't have to request. Like if that's how you define it, that's how you define it. But what we're trying to say is we're trying to give agencies the tools that they can give to their customers that make them want to use more of the agency services, to like rely more on the agent themselves, and think about like this, they're never going to leave once they have it. And
Right.
so it's again, if you only think about it as a mobile app, then I think you're thinking about 5 years ago.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be really cool where it's going. Not just for personal lines, by the way, but for commercial lines, small business commercial as well.
Well, we are about at time. I want to say one thing as we wrap up, people. One of the biggest issues that I personally see with the insurance industry is we get caught in a thought process and we then put a stop on the timeline, meaning you might think you know what's going on with Glovebox based off of your impression 5 years ago. And if you're thinking that it's the same today that it was then, you're part of that problem. And I honestly want to thank you because it makes it a lot easier for me to compete against agencies that think that way in the marketplace, because I'm dealing with tools that are going to come out 5 years from now, not what happened 5 years ago. So my challenge to you would be, if you've not looked at this technology and if you haven't, been up to date, at a bare minimum, get on this webinar. It doesn't cost you anything to do it. And then once the dust settles from this a little bit, I'm going to invite Nick and the crew to come on and really drill down in some of what they've developed from commercial capabilities, because we've not talked anything at all about that. And that's another thing that we were going to discuss. And then, one thing led to another and it just didn't happen. So I think it's a great time to do that, but would love to have people come on and learn specifically about those capabilities too. So really quickly, we'll put it in the show notes, but if you can give them the quick and dirty on when the webinar is, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, Tuesday, December 17th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to be doing sort of a town hall where we're going to be unveiling a lot more of the product roadmap, where the companies are at today, where the companies are going tomorrow, kind of what that looks like, and just sort of give you kind of a peek behind the curtain on where we're going with this and why it matters, and why you should be interested in it. So it's not a sales pitch. We're doing one internally for our customers, like a product, like, hey, here's what's going on. But we thought it'd be really good to put it out in the public as well, where it's just like, hey, this is kind of what this means, and this is what this is going to look like, and this is how we want you to think about this. So that's going to be December 17th, 9 a.m. Dave will have a link. You can register for that. It's going to be on Zoom. So join us for that.
Sounds good, man. Well, I am going to wrap this up because I've got to go, and I'm actually going to be in Bradley Flowers' agency here in another minute. I'm teleporting to Mobile, Alabama to talk to them about commercial insurance. So I'm going to run. Everybody sign up for the webinar. If you have any other questions, you can reach out to either me or Nick directly, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week. See ya.